Swanson back here with another episode of FreedomCast. Hey, I have a question for you in this episode. Do you ever make decisions in life about your investments, about money, about personal things? Do you make decisions? Would you like to make better decisions? Hey, on this episode of FreedomCast, we're going to free you from the struggle that most people have in trying to decide choice A, B, or C. What's the best thing to do? And the way we're going to do it is I'm going to walk you through my process for making decisions. I'm going to take you step by step through my process for making decisions. And I'm going to walk you through a personal process, a personal, real life, real example, real world scenario that I just got done doing for Rob. You're going to see exactly how I did it. Here's what I'm going to ask you at the beginning. Are you enjoying FreedomCast? And if you are enjoying FreedomCast, what I'd love you to do is shoot in a text. Let me know. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what topics you would like to have discussed. And you can do that to the FreedomCast hotline number at 720-605-6265, 720-605-6265. If you're getting any value out of this, if you have any questions, if you've got anything you'd like us to talk about, that is the way that you can connect directly to me. And guess what? I actually respond back. So you can shoot a text, you can call and leave a voicemail. Let me know. I'd love to hear. So let's dive in on this. In this episode, we're going to talk about how do you make decisions. And I'm going to show you, if you're watching this via video, a process to make decisions using a weighted decision matrix. Now, I know it's a big word. It's a big few words. Weighted decision matrix. But once you understand how this works, you're going to be freed from the struggle of what's my best choice? Which direction should I go? What decisions should I make? So, a weighted decision matrix, and there are really 5 steps to setting up and using a weighted decision matrix. And I'm going to walk you through each of those 5 steps. Let me set this up and let me give you kind of a scenario on how this works. So for the first time since 2001, Rob Swanson, Mr. Real Estate Investor Dealmaker, is paying retail for a house. For the first time, I'm paying retail for a house. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because my wife thinks it would be an amazing idea. So for the last 3 to 4 years, we've been thinking about moving, and I said, hey, we're not going to move until we get a great deal. We're gonna wait, and we're gonna be patient, and we're gonna get a great deal. Now, we had very specific criteria on what we were looking for, so it wasn't just good enough to go get a great deal. We had to get a great deal that had very specific criteria, and I'm going to walk you through this criteria here in a moment. So not only did we have to get a good deal in my mind, because I'm a real estate guy and I don't pay retail since 2001, but we have to have the right kind of property because it's something that we want for ourselves, our personal use. So here's what happened. 1 year goes by, 2 years goes by, 3 years goes by, and we don't really find the right deal. And Rob's kind of okay with that, and we're thinking, we'll just wait. Because I went in and out of how hard am I looking? I'm looking kind of hard, and then I get bored or I get sidetracked. I go do another real estate or business deal, and it takes my focus away, and I'm kind of in and out. So I'm not like full-time legit on this. So my wife finally comes to me and says, you know, if we don't just do something, we're never going to do it. If we let your criteria, it's got to be a good deal, meaning I got to buy it either with great terms or at a significant discount. She goes, we're never going to buy that next place that we want for our personal residence. So She says, let's go ahead and make the move. And I said, all right. I sucked it up. I went against every guiding principle that I have to make my wife happy. And that is, I'm going to pay retail for a house. So here's what happened. She comes to me and says, hey, let's do it. Let's forget about your gotta get a good deal criteria. Let's go find the perfect house that we want. Let's buy it and let's enjoy it. And I said, okay. Now, when my wife tells me to do something like that, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go the next day and I'm going to start making it happen. So the next day, I start making it happen. That very next day, I call up one of my buddies, guy I've known in the real estate game for a long time, and I'm like, hey, buddy, here's the deal. My wife is ready to make the move. I no longer get to find a good deal, and we just got to find the perfect place for us, so help us out. So he sets up an automated listing and leads notification of all the properties that meet our criteria. And so I start getting them, and my wife starts getting them. And all of a sudden she comes to me that evening and she says, hey, I started getting these emails. What is this all about? And I said, well, yesterday you told me to go find us the perfect place. I said, so today I'm doing that. And all of a sudden she gets a little nervous, a little panicked. Hey, you mean it's actually happening? So Rob lives on the edge of risk and the edge of speed in most things. And Rob's wife lives on the edge of comfort and no risk in most things. And for her, change is difficult. And so as soon as she said, hey, I'd like to do this, I executed and I went and started to make it happen, to which she then begins to panic a little bit because she doesn't like change. Now, I'm over-exaggerating a little bit. My wife's not a panicker. My wife's a very grounded and solid person. But for the illusion of the story, she starts to panic, okay? To which I have to say, I got to figure out now, how am I going to work and talk with my wife and bring her through this decision-making process? Because we're moving forward. I've committed. I'm going to pay retail. I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to be a done deal. How are we going to get there? And how are we going to find the right property? Well, the way we're going to do it is we're going to use a weighted decision matrix. Now, in a weighted decision matrix, there are 5 steps to coming to the right conclusion and the right decision. Here's the step number 1. You first have to brainstorm all of your priorities. Okay, so in a decision matrix, there are priorities, there are weights, there are choices, and there are rankings. Okay, let me say it again. There are priorities, there are weights, there are choices, and there are rankings. There's 4 things that go into a weighted decision matrix. The starting point and what you start with is brainstorming your priorities. So brainstorming your priorities in our example of, finding the perfect house for us as a family was coming up with our list of must-haves. So we just started to brainstorm everything, okay? We just put down a list of things that we said, this is what we're looking for in a house. Okay, this is what we want. We wanted to move to a different part of town, and yet where we were living, we loved it because it was backing to open space and we didn't have neighbors and all this. So there was this criteria that we're not willing to give up this sort of connection to the outdoors and nature living in a big city of Denver. To move to the part of town that we wanted to be in, we weren't willing to give up certain things. So our criteria ended up to be a top 10 list. Now, we didn't go into this by saying, hey, let's create a top 10 list. We went into it by saying, let's create a brainstorm list of all of the things that we think we might be interested in this property. So number one was to create your brainstorm list, no holds barred. Step number 2 then was to start to refine that list. So that priorities list, we were looking for a minimum, and the way I approach this is I approach minimums in my brainstorm criteria. My priorities are minimums. So we were looking for a minimum 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. That was priority number one. It had to be a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. Now, part of that reason is my kids are leaving the nest. You know, I've got one in college, I've got 2 in high school, and you know, we don't need a ton of bedrooms. 4-bedroom, 3-bath house is great. We can have, my wife's from a big family. We can have family members over. We can have friends over. There's plenty of space. We wanted a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. The second criteria, I like to cook. I like to entertain. I like to have people over. I like to cook. And so a gourmet kitchen. And I'm writing this down. Gourmet kitchen. Okay? That was priority number 2. It was criteria number 2. What were we looking for? Criteria number 3, or priority number 3, was a backyard sanctuary. So backyard sanctuary. That was my wife. So we agreed 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. Gourmet kitchen, big enough to entertain. Backyard sanctuary. My wife needs to walk into the backyard and just go into Zen world. She needs to feel at peace. She needs to hear the birds chirping. She needs to not hear any noise from traffic. She needs to not see crazy, creepy neighbors, right? She needs to go in there and have her organic garden Zen place. That's priority number 3. Now, from there, we started to break down additional priorities. So we wanted a neighborhood feel. We wanted a neighborhood feel that had energy. So we didn't want to walk into a neighborhood and just have this sort of sterile environment where everybody walks in, you know, drives into the neighborhood, into their driveway, garage door goes up, they pull in, garage door goes down, nobody ever talks to anybody, and everybody's yard is perfect, right? That's not what we were looking for. And so neighborhood feel with an element of energy was important to us. It was a priority. Now, another priority for us was mountain views. Mountain view. Okay? I'm creating a weighted decision matrix based on this top 10 list of what were the things that were important to us. And I'm going to pull up my Evernote, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to just keep walking down this list, because the whole point of this was to do a couple things. It was to give my buddy really specific criteria in, hey, help us find this. And it was also to help my wife and I, who process information completely different, an almost mathematical way to say, this is the better choice. This house over this house. One is better than the other. So 4-bedroom, 3-bath minimum, large entertaining kitchen, gourmet kitchen, secluded backyard, neighborhood energy feel, mountain views, 3-car garage. Now remember, these are the minimums, okay? If a property did not have these minimums, it didn't even make the cut, okay? These were the minimums. A connection to trails. A connection to trails. My wife and I, we love the outdoors. We wanted to walk out. Like the minimum was a close connection to trails. The maximum, like a 10 out of 10 in this, would have been walk out the backyard onto a dirt trail and into the mountains, right? That would have been perfect. So a connection to trails. Let's see, we had office space for both of us, okay? We wanted the 4-bedroom, 3-bath, but we both wanted our office space in the house so that we could do our thing, right? We each wanted office space. We wanted a finished basement. In Colorado here, basements, everybody has basements. So we wanted a finished basement that was the minimum. And the maximum for me, my wife wouldn't have been so concerned about this, but I wanted a walkout basement. The house that we're in now is a walkout basement into a big yard. I wanted a walkout basement. Most importantly there, I wanted a lot of light in the basement, right? Basement's kind of your hangout. It's your guy zone. It's your an entertaining spot. If you're not up in the kitchen, maybe you're down in the basement shooting pool or something like that. And so I wanted a lot of light in the basement. Again, criteria of what I was looking for. Let's see. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And number 10 was price. Okay. I'm a real estate guy. Even though I'm willing to pay retail, I still want to consider price, right? And so that rounds out our top 10 list. So that was our priority. So on our weighted checklist, we created priority 1 through 10. And we put each priority in a column right here along this weighted priority checklist. Then we did this. We created a weight for each of those priorities. And here's what I mean by this. The way I create a weight, once I've created my priorities, and in any decision, like you can make a decision for buying a computer, you can make a decision for buying a house, you can make a decision for analyzing an investment property, you can make a decision for stocks, you can make a decision for anything, the schools that your kids are going to go to. You can make a decision for all of these things, and you can come up with a mathematical what's the right decision using a weighted decision matrix. So once we have the priorities into the right columns, we create a weight. And the way I create a weight is my weight is between 1 and 2. And what I mean by that is the weight could be 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, on up to 2.0, okay? So I'm just gonna weight each priority. So for example, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. That was a minimum. We don't want anything less than a 4.3, right? Now, we ended up buying a 6-bedroom, 5-bath house or a 6-bedroom, 6-bath house or something like that. We ended up exceeding our minimum, okay? So a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house was a must-have. That was the minimum must-have. So we gave that a weight of 2.0, okay? Now, down to price, we were flexible on price. Like we could have been on the lower side of what we were looking for. We could have been on the higher side of what we were looking for, and we were okay. So we attributed a weight of 1.0. So in the weighted scale, 4-bedroom, 3-bath was going to have a greater impact on the overall score of a particular choice than price. Price was going to get weighted as a 1-to-1. 4-bedroom 3 was going to get weighted as a 2.0, a 2-to-1. And so then gourmet kitchen. Okay, that was a big deal for me. So we weighted that as a 2.0. Sanctuary backyard sanctuary. Big deal for my wife. That was weighted at 2.0. Neighborhood energy feel. That was a big deal for us. Weighted at 2.0. Mountain views. We weighted that as a 1.0 because if it met our other criteria, meaning backyard sanctuary, I didn't need the mountain view, the unobstructed front range mountain view if everything else was ticking in my priorities list, right? So we weighted mountain view as a 1.0, 3-car garage. That was a must-have. I mean, we needed a minimum 3-car garage. Okay, so we weighted that as a 2.0. Now you're going to see here that I pretty much, when I try to do my decision matrix layouts, I pretty much weight things either a 1 or a 2. Occasionally I'll weight something at a 1.5. Just it's about kind of how important do you feel this piece is into the overall decision-making process, okay? So connection to trails, we weighted that as a 1.0 because we're then gonna rank all of these, and that weight is going to either bump the rank or reduce the rank, okay? Office space, we weighted as a 1.0 because if it didn't have office space for both of us, we weren't even looking at it anyway, right? So we were then going to evaluate whether it meets our minimum criteria, exceeds it, or doesn't meet the minimum. let's see, connection to trails, the office space, let's see, we had price as a 1.0, and I can't even read my own writing here. I got to pull this back up on my Evernote. What was the last one that I'm missing? The finished basement. Finished basement, we weighted as a 1.0. So that's what created our weight system. Okay, so on our decision tree, we now have written down our priorities, our top 10 list. Now, some decisions you only have to evaluate one or two things. Sometimes you only have to evaluate two or three things. In our house buying decision, there were 10 criteria, 10 priorities that we wanted to evaluate, and we attributed a weight to each one of them. Then what we do is we start looking at our options, okay? Our options, our choices go down this side, the left-hand side. And so house number 1, house number 2, house number 3, house number 4, and we rank each choice, each house on the 10 criteria. And here's how we rank. We rank from a 1 to a 10. 1 meaning it does not meet the minimum criteria. 10 meaning it exceeds the minimum criteria. And 5 meaning it meets, 1 meaning does not meet, 10 meaning it exceeds, and 5, it meets the minimum criteria. So if we had 10 choices that were all equally weighted as a 1.0, the minimum score that we would be looking for any property would be a 50. 10 choices with a rank of 5 on each of those choices. 10 times 5 would be 50. Our minimum score would be 50 if each thing was weighted as a 1.0. So this is how you build a decision matrix. Now, if you want to go download this, you can go to robswanson.com/matrix. Go to robswanson.com/matrix, MATRIX, and it's going to take you to a page where you're going to be able to click a link and download this Excel spreadsheet. Then you'll be able to use this weighted decision matrix for any decisions that you're trying to make. Anytime I have a big decision, a business deal, a business I'm interested in buying or selling or building, or a real estate investment deal that I'm analyzing, or in this case, buying a house, moving our kids to new school, or again, anything in life that you have to make a decision about, this makes it easier. So here's what happened. We looked at a handful of properties, and we ended up evaluating really 3 properties more seriously than everything else. Some of the properties, again, because of our criteria, it was really easy to just immediately eliminate that property. And here's why this really is helpful. See, this is how my engineer brain thinks. My wife's brain doesn't necessarily think this way, but she really appreciates the process, right? Of creating the priorities, looking at the choices, and then ranking everything. She appreciates the process because it made it so much easier for her to go through this uncomfortable change, but she knew that it was the good decision and the right decision because she could see it in black and white mathematically. So we looked at 3 properties, and those 3 properties, one of them, more serious, one of them scored just below our minimum criteria. That one was immediately pushed out. One of them scored a good dozen points or so above our minimum criteria. So on several of our priorities, it was significantly exceeding our minimum requirements. The house that we ended up with was significantly above, on a weighted scale, above any of our other choices. significantly above. And we created, does it meet the minimum? That's a 5. Does it exceed the minimum? That's a 10. So a 6 would be it just exceeds the minimum. 7, 8, 9, 10. And then from a 5 down to a 4, it no longer meets the minimum criteria. 3, 2, 1 does not even qualify, right? A 1 does not meet the criteria at all. And so that's how we created the rank. So we really gave a fair shot to every property, and we ranked the whole thing. My wife looks at it mathematically and says, this makes sense. So she felt comfortable in the process, the change process, and the decision-making process, that we were making the right decision. Because when you looked at it as math, she's like, yeah, that one, the house that we ended up with, far exceeded anything else in the priorities that were important to us. So, number 1, brainstorm your priorities. No holds barred. Just create your big list of everything. Number 2, review, redefine, and then select the actual priorities that you want to evaluate and rank. Number 3, assign a weight to each priority. And I've talked about how to do that. That's the 1 to 2.0 weighting system. Number 4, determine your rank for each criteria, 1 through 10. Like, again, 5 meaning it meets the minimum, 10 it exceeds, and 1 it does not meet. And then number 5, rank each priority for every choice. That's the process right here to determine and create and use a decision matrix. So brainstorm your priorities, review, redefine, and select those priorities, assign a weight to each priority, determine your rank and approach from 1 through 10, and then rank each priority for every choice. Once you do that, and you download the spreadsheet at robswanson.com/matrix, you can make decisions that you're really comfortable about. And you know that you're making the right decision because you're actually really giving consideration to the things that are important. You're mathematically ranking them, and every choice gets to stack up against the others. So, for example, when we go into a new real estate market in our real estate investing business, this is what I do. I look at a weighted decision matrix on different markets. And I rank those markets based on price point, based on income levels, based on inventory levels, based on the activity of the market, based on the population, based on historical appreciation. I create the priorities, I assign a weight, I look at my choices, and then for every choice I rank all of my priorities. That's the process of creating a weighted decision matrix. So I hope this has been a helpful lesson. I hope that you've learned something through this, and I hope you got some entertainment out of my story of me paying retail for the first house since 2001. And let me tell you this, not only did I pay retail for the first house since 2001, but I got into a bidding war. I got into a bidding war with 2 other buyers, and I won. I won the bidding war because I was willing to pay $62,500 over the seller's asking price. Now, why did I do that? I did it because I've been married for 23 years. My wife liked the house, and I thought, what the heck? I'm not buying this as an investment property. I'm not buying it for the equity. I'm not buying this for the cash flow. I'm buying this because it's a personal choice and I want to. And so when I went through the weighted decision tree matrix and I saw how this property scored on the things that were important to us, not only did it make my wife comfortable with that we're making the right choice and we're picking the right house, it made me comfortable saying, you know what, it does meet our criteria. I'm willing to pay the price. That's it. This is how you can make decisions. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. Go download my weighted decision matrix at robswanson.com/matrix. If you have any questions about this, if you have any questions about how this works, call into the FreedomCast hotline at 720-605-6265. Call the FreedomCast hotline, shoot a text to the FreedomCast hotline, ask me any question about how this works, 720-605-6265. This has been FreedomCast episode number 10. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. I hope you apply the weighted decision matrix process in your own life. If you do, would you tell me about it? Let me know, because I love to hear success stories, things that I do, that I share, that you find value in. So go download it, go use it, let me know, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.